Event Horizon was released in 1997. It was written and directed by Paul W.S. Anderson of Resident Evil fame. It stars Laurence Fishburne, Sam Neill, Jolie Richardson and Kathleen Quinlan. It also stars two favourites of mine, Jason Isaacs and Sean Pertwee, in kind of side character roles, but that's often the case with these two actors. But yeah, two great British exports, both present. I'm reviewing this film for one of my patrons, Wade Gilbert. He had a request due and this is what he requested. Event Horizon. I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with this film over the years. The majority of times I've watched it, I've not been overly enamoured with it. This time around, I watched it and it hit me better than it ever has. Now, I don't know if that's because I sat down purposefully to review it and therefore, as is often the case, I sit down, I start to make proper mental notes as to the things I like, the things I don't like, rather than just passively soaking it up. But I think because I did that, something about it I liked a lot more than previous viewings. Is it a great film? I would still have to say no. I think it's very flawed, but there are great things about it. First and foremost is the production design. Like, if nothing else, you can say this film is an absolute work of art when it comes to the production design. The Event Horizon herself, the ship, is brilliantly and beautifully designed. Many different kind of compartments to it, like the doctor's bay and the engine where this big ball thing is that creates the Event Horizon, that creates a black hole for the ship to travel from one point in space to another. That room in particular is beautifully designed, kind of has a look and feel of Xavier's danger room in the X-Men, and yet much better, a lot more detailed. Like the danger room in X-Men is very plain, it's just kind of blank panels. Now imagine that, but with every single panel having like beautiful tiling and detailing on it. It really is an absolute work of art. This ship feels lived in. It feels like it's been to hell and back. I think Anderson as well shows some of the best directing of his career in this film. The way he moves the camera sometimes to disorientate us, feeding into that idea of being in space where there's no up or down. Like there's times when the camera pulls out from someone upside down, only to pivot round and show the ship looking what is the right way up, even though it's technically not the right way up because you're in space, so there is no right way up. A lot of creativity in the film with regards to visuals that I think Anderson lacks later on in his career, and I feel like that's a budgetary thing. I feel like when you don't have as much money to spend, it breeds creativity. You're forced to be inventive. I feel like Anderson also steals a lot. I say steal, homage, whatever you want to call it. Either way, it's to good effect. I'm not dissing him for it. Everyone does it. All filmmakers do it. Even my favourite filmmaker, Christopher Nolan, has riffed on Bond more than his fair share of times. He's seen things in Bond, but he makes it bigger. There's a lot in here where you're like, is that a nod to such and such? Is that a nod to that film? There's even the design of the Event Horizon. It just looks like a gigantic Klingon bird of prey. I feel like the design of it is ripped right out of Star Trek. There's also a sequence that kind of is very reminiscent of The Shining. I feel like it's an ode to The Shining, where all this blood coloured water kind of just pours out of this thing, and it reminds me of the lift scene in The Shining, where the lift opens and all the blood comes pouring out. Whether that was intentional or not, I don't know, but I feel like that is a bit of a nod. And then you've got things, the obvious comparison being Alien and Aliens. We see the scanner devices when they go on to the Event Horizon. Reminds me of the opening of Aliens with James Cameron's Aliens, when that scanner just kind of sends the beam of light around the room to scan everything, and you see the mist in the air as it cuts through it. Again, that's there, all present. A lot of the design of the ship, the grubby, dirty feel of the ship, again, ripped from Ridley Scott's Alien. Something that's hard to avoid these days. Now, if you do a space movie, if your ship is nice and clean and pristine, then it's Star Trek. If your ship is dirty and grubby, then it's Alien. You know, it's like you can't really escape those comparisons. But I feel like there's some definite nods here, visually speaking, to those films. But the first half of the film for me is the better half. I think it does an amazing job of building intrigue, of building that sense of, oh crap, what are we heading into? You know, so the setup is that you've got this crew who are going out to the location of the Event Horizon. The Event Horizon being a ship that was sent out and lost 7 years prior. It was supposed to go on this mission to jump through a wormhole, essentially. Nobody knew this, of course. This was all kept secret. But the ship has turned back up. When it went through that wormhole, where it went to is anybody's guess, but one can only assume it was hell itself. And obviously that setup is a really great, intriguing setup, which allows you to go anywhere you want with regards to the horror on this ship. You know, if the ship's been to hell and back, what's it brought back with it? That's a great, intriguing idea. And I feel like Anderson does and the actors, the performers, do a really great job of building that sense of intrigue, and anything could happen, anything could be lurking around the corners of this ship. Certainly, if not the last half, the last third of the film is where things start to unravel a little bit for me. And I think that's mostly down to the character of Weir, played by Sam Neill. So you've got this guy who, you know, we're shown very early on through dreams that he's having, that he lost his wife. You know, his wife committed suicide, he lost her, and it seems to be that this ship has a power over him, is calling him in some way, and he gives himself over to it seemingly far too easy. Like, I feel like the exploration of this character is very muddy, is very grey. And I was told by someone a while back, I think it was a friend of mine, Woody Bowen, actually, who does all my channel art. I'm sure it was him who said there's apparently a longer cut of this, like a 3-hour cut of Event Horizon. I think the original cut of the film was like something like 3 hours, and the studio just made Anderson trim it right down to like an hour and a half film. If that's the case, I would love to see that cut, because I feel like there's probably a lot of stuff around Sam Neill's character that would flesh out his reasons for doing things. Because there's times when he shows care towards certain characters. Like there's a particular character that dies, she gets killed at one point, and he finds her body, and you can tell he's upset. He's visibly upset. Like he feels bad for this woman. He feels sorry for her. So clearly this isn't a guy who's completely abandoned all goodness and let it go, and yet like instantly, like straight after that, it appears as though he has, and even scenes before that it seems like he has. So you're left wondering, well, make up your mind, who is this guy and why is he behaving the way he is? And I get there's the notion that the ship is taking hold of him in some way, but it's inconsistent. Seeing that his wife had killed herself becomes a bit of a moot point after a while. Like they don't lean into that enough. I personally feel like what may have been in the full cut of the film is this idea that yes, his wife committed suicide, and yes, within a Catholic way of thinking, that it's the ultimate sin. You don't kill yourself, otherwise you go to hell. And that maybe his wife was calling him from hell, and because he loves her so much, he's willing to abandon all and forsake all in order to get to her again, even if it's a hellish version of her. Now, I'm plucking a lot of that out of my ass. You know, I'm reading between the lines, and I'm putting things into the script that are just not there. Laurence Fishburne's character fares much better, I feel. He has his backstory of, yeah, we've seen it before. It's like it's not exactly an original piece of backstory, but it's enough to endear me to him and root for him and see him as the hero of the film. Obviously, the payoff here is that he gets the chance to redeem himself. It's probably the strongest bit of kind of character development in the whole film. There are little moments as well that I appreciate, like one particular character's death sequence. So he comes face to face with a bomb. You know, he knows there's a bomb on this ship, but he doesn't want to leave his ship because it would mean having to stay on the event horizon, which is the last thing he wants to do, which is a trait about him that I really like, because it's the sensible thing. You know, you always get these horror movies like where people know that some bad crap is going down in a particular location, and yet they're all like willing to stay there and do their job and get on with it. No, this character's like, I'm good on our ship, actually. I'm going to do some engineering work and things like that on our ship, because I would rather stay there than come on board this freaky ass thing. And that to me is an honest reaction. That would be me. He knows a bomb's been left on the ship, so he's desperately trying to search for it and get it off, because he would rather stay there than go on the event horizon. But he comes face to face with the bomb when it's only got a few seconds left. And I feel like in any other film, you would get a pithy line of dialogue. Someone's about to, you know, they know they're going to die, and they come out with some clever thing, or just a swear word. They'd be like, oh, you know, like really blasé. It's like, oh yeah, I'm about to die, which always annoys the crap out of me. But this particular character's face, and you know, props to the actor, an actor I really like. I'm trying not to say who it is, so that, but it's a bit redundant at this point. If you see it coming in the film and you've not seen the film before, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Sean Pertwee, I may as well ruin it at this point. If you're not seeing Event Horizon now after 20 odd years, then what the heck are you doing? I feel like his reaction is really honest, is really great. You literally see this guy's life flash before his eyes. Now it is undercut, unfortunately, by just moments later. After that explosion, there is another crew member on the outside of the ship who gets blasted out into space. And he does come up with some pithy comments, and totally inappropriate to the situation, where actually, again, that same level of absolute fear and dread would be far more appropriate. And I'll say it, black comments. And by that I mean Hollywood black comments. You know, like every black guy in a Hollywood movie of this ilk back in the 90s, even before the 90s throughout, until only fairly recently, I would say, speaks in a very particular way. You know, and Scary Movie kind of did a send up of it quite nicely, having the black character. That is whack, man. Oh hell no. You know, and it's that way of speaking where it was the film Crash kind of touched upon that as well, where you know, there's a filmmaker, a black filmmaker in that, where the studio were kind of forcing him to have his characters speak more black. And it feels like that. That's what it feels like. So this guy gets blasted out of space and then starts speaking all black, Hollywood black. And it's just, yeah, it's cringe. It's more cringe because of the fact that it comes immediately after a moment where Anderson actually handles the death of a character really well, really beautifully well, where he goes against the tropes of Hollywood to deliver something that feels like an honest moment, only to immediately after, it's a bit cringe. There's a few other times as well where characters just do stupid things, like one particular character is on her way out. They've got all the stuff they need. They're this close to getting gone, and then she sees her son. She sees the sun, and then she has to go after it. And you're just like, no, I'm sorry, but you know full well what's going on here. You know the ship's playing games with you. You know that isn't your son. You know that this is some kind of hellish vision that is being projected into your mind. I don't care how real it looks. I wouldn't buy it. There's just no way. You've gone on a space mission by yourself, without your family. You're with a crew, but you didn't take your family with you. You know your son isn't out there. There's no way he could be. You know that is something else. Don't go after it. Don't go pursuing it. But she does, and it all ends in tears. So eye-rollingly annoying. There are certain things that people do in horror movies that I'm just like, heck no, I would not be doing that. I would be in completely the opposite direction, and I would be perfectly fine with my cowardice. Thank you very much. The dialogue in this film as well isn't particularly great, which is all the more reason I like moments like the Pertwee death scene where there's no dialogue necessary. It's just an honest moment of quiet. But yeah, lines of dialogue, like when Fishburne's character goes after Neill and he kind of locks and loads with this gun. It looks like a nail gun or something. And then he speaks out this line of dialogue that's meant to be cool. You want to stay on this ship? Fine, you're never going to leave. And you're like, dude, who are you talking to? One final positive is that I do like the stinger at the end of this film. It's the kind of stinger I like. Now, these days, every horror movie seems to have a stinger at the end where the characters have gone through crap, they've gone through hell, and you think they've got out and there's a nice respite, a nice bit of breeze, and then suddenly, no, you're still in the nightmare. You're not getting out of it. And I hate them. I hate those stingers. It does my head in. Just look, if you start the sequel that way if you want, but just leave us on the nice high of people actually surviving. Whereas this film, it has a bit of a stinger like that, but it leaves the possibility that it's all in her mind available, like it's psychological scarring. So we get this stinger where the surviving members they get back to Earth and they're found, and when they're brought out of their cryopods, she has this nightmarish vision. Now you can say, okay, so they brought hell with them, because they came back on a part of the event horizon, it's come back with them. Or it could just be a nightmare because of all the crap she's been through. And to me, that's the kind of stinger I like. So we're seeing that, okay, these characters are left with psychological scars, which, let's face it, given everything they've been through, you would be. So you're free to determine whether or not, oh yeah, they brought hell with them. Oh, where would that go in a sequel? Or you can simply say, as I'm quite happy to do so, that no, after what they've been through, it's gonna leave some mental scars. I like that. I like that kind of stinger that's a little bit more open to interpretation. And yeah, that's my thoughts on the film. I liked it quite a lot, but I didn't love it. There's just too many rough edges, I would say, for me to say that it's great. But it is a lot better than I've previously given it credit for. Let me and Wade know what you think of Event Horizon down in the comment section below. Thank you, Wade, for being a patron, and thank you for requesting this particular movie. And until next time, crack in.